Hi everyone, thank you for coming. So a bit of background here. I've been with Klarna for about 2 years now, and most of that time I spent in analytics engineering, where I had a chance to work with very smart, great people, and we've tackled a lot of different challenges, things like consumer identification, risk variable modeling, and when I think about it, from the technical perspective, each of those challenges was unique. But when it comes to teams work, we actually use the same factors that define how effective we were as a team. So, and then I also came across a study done by a guy called Dan North, who is quite big in the agile world, and who, by the way, was a keynote speaker here at Klarna 2 years ago. So his study was about different patterns of effective teams, and to be honest, I've seen quite an overlap with the way we've been working. So I thought it would be useful to share some of those ideas with the rest of the company. And this is how the idea of this talk emerged. To better understand what would be the most interesting for you, I sent out a poll with different questions about Teams culture to multiple Klarna and so forth teams. And I believe that the number of responses that I got back is actually the same as the emergency number here in Sweden. Is that true? Was quite a funny coincidence. But anyways, so I've analyzed the results and came up with the following topics. So our plan for today is to go through each of those and to see how different ideas that we're going to outline can help you be better at teamwork and how you can apply them. Sounds good? Okay, so let's start with the first one, diversity of experience. So it's not a secret that we're all different in terms of our experience and background. And on one hand, we can use them to inspire others. But on the other hand, they can make us blind to ideas and opinions of others. So the great risk here is that no matter what experience we have, there is still a chance of missing intricacies of the problem, which can turn into negative consequences down the line. And also it can create a perverse incentive. Things like when people are afraid of asking stupid questions, or they just don't want to have a conflict with the person who's being cocky, etc. Quick show of hands. How many of you have heard of the bus factor? Okay, quite a few. So basically the bus factor is the number of people that could be run over by a bus before a project stalls. I recently came across another term called the inverse bus factor. That is actually the people who have to be run over by a bus before a team can get any work done. So that's of course the extreme case, but let's just see how we feel when someone just shows up their seniority. Overall, the results look quite good, but what I would like to pay your attention to is 11% over there. Those of us who answered, I don't like it. So my point is, 11% is not that much, right? But what I believe we should understand here is that behind those numbers are real people. And I guess no one wants to make anyone feel uncomfortable working with them, so let's try to make our teams a safe environment where everyone's opinions matter. Okay, let's now look at how we work in a team. Okay, so to me the results for solo, pairing, and mobbing look quite expected. What I believe is underestimated a bit is working in micro-silos. Let me elaborate on that. We know that rotation between different kinds of work introduces context switching. And some contexts are harder to switch than others. Moreover, different people prefer different kinds of work. And to stay effective as a team, you actually don't need everyone to know how to do everything, but just enough of it so that there is no bottleneck on the team. So micro-silos can help us address those issues. What is a micro-silo? A micro-silo is essentially a group of people that work together in a particular area. So the trick with micro-silos is that as long as we have more than one person that knows a thing, then people can take vacations safely, they can rotate in and out of the team. That's perfectly fine. The only requirement, though, is that people should periodically step out of their silos to sync with the rest of the team so that everyone knows how well the team is doing as a whole. So if you're on the team and you see that there are some people who are just excited about a particular area, set them up so that they can do an excellent job and provide all the support they need. And the reason it might be a good idea, why it might be a good idea to do so, is because by doing it, we learn to treat programmers as human beings with their opinions and preferences, and we actually encourage them to play to their strengths. So let's now look at how we interact between teams. At Idun, the team I used to work in, our main product was a consumer identification system that had very strict SLAs. And to be able to identify consumers, that system had to crunch through 100 gigs of data. So about a year ago, we noticed that the system couldn't keep up with that much data anymore. So the 99th percentile of the response time was just terrible. So we sat together to think about how we could fix the problem as effectively as possible. And we remembered that there was the performance team at Klarna, whose main area was dealing with performance issues. So we decided to reach out to them, and they kindly dedicated 2 people who joined our team for a couple of months. And we organized our work in the way of several experiments that we've gone through together. And then in the end, thanks to our collaboration, we managed to improve the 99th percentile of the response time by an order of magnitude. So that kind of collaboration turned out to be very effective for us. And I believe if we can actually manage to scale that approach to the size of the whole company, everyone could benefit. Think about it. There are different kinds of people. There are some who love building products and provide smooth experience to customers. And there are others, like our performance guys, who just like nerding out in their discipline. So what we could have is coach teams where those coaches would stay ahead of the game in their discipline, and then when it's needed, they would go on assignments to different product teams. So what we get here is that coaches get practical experience by applying their deep knowledge to real business problems, whereas the product teams learn from them. So basically, the bar is raising across the whole organization, which is quite cool. Okay, so let's now talk about onboarding. So we know how sticky the first impression is, whether it's good or bad. The trick with onboarding is that it's our only chance to make a good one. And there are multiple ways we can do so. Let me give you an example. This is my buddy Tommy. Tommy joined Klarna this summer, and we onboarded him by using the onboarding deck that he's holding in his hands and was created in analytics engineering. So that deck consists of a handful of cards where each of those represent a task that has to be completed as part of the onboarding process. From things like introduce the person to the domain to something like grant your access. And the last card says, improve this deck. So it's actually really cool because the next person who joins the team gets even a better and smoother experience. And to give you an opposite example, that happened to me in one of the companies I used to work for. It was my first week, and my team lead approached me and said something like, well, Anton, it's so exciting to have you on the team. And I said, yeah, sure. But then he would go, but if you decide to quit, remember, that was my first week. Could you let me know in advance so that I could plan for it? Absolutely. Thank you for a warm welcome. So, I mean, it sounds funny, but it wasn't for me, believe me. Okay, but let's now look at how good we are at onboarding at Klarna. So what we have here is from 1 to 5, which is from terrible to fantastic. We got these figures. And what we can see is basically about 41% were not really happy with their onboarding experience. Interesting, isn't it? To make matters a bit worse, let me show you the results of the employee engagement survey that were kindly provided by the HR department. So unfortunately, so what we have here is a comparison between September 16th and January 17th. And what I would like to draw your attention to is that for new hires, we got a drop of 15% in engagement for 6 months, during 6 months, which is quite a lot, unfortunately. So, and what can we say here? I believe that onboarding is where a team's culture starts. And I also believe that we can definitely do much better than that. In fact, every one of us can do it well. It's just a matter of the necessary amount of effort that has to be applied. Okay. There is actually an ongoing initiative at Klarna that is aimed at improving the onboarding process. And that is driven by Alexandra Henningson. Alexandra, are you here with us? There's Alexandra. So if you feel interested and you want to get involved, please keep in touch with Alexandra. She'll be happy. So let's now proceed to code reviews. A sensitive topic, right? Okay. I've heard some people saying things like, well, we don't do code reviews because we do pair programming or mob programming, and we trust each other. Well, I believe when we actually think this way, we're missing the point of code reviews. We do not do code reviews to police each other, okay? We actually use them for 2 other reasons. First, it's quite easy to see the code that's submitted under the version control, right? What is impossible to see, though, is the code that isn't there. What I mean by that is, what I can see is that maybe, say, Henrik has gone through 5 more ideas before he's come up with this one, with this final solution. So he's sketching with those and discarding ideas that didn't fit. And if I want to learn to program like he does, I will need that information. Second, code reviews create idioms across the team. What is an idiom? An idiom is something we all choose, which means the same thing for us. That gives us consistency. And with that consistency in mind, if I see something that looks unusual, that's a signal. If, say, in Java, we agree to use streams to handle a sequence of elements, and all of a sudden I see a for loop, chances are that that for loop does something like performance optimization, for example. So, okay, I would like to pay special attention to the words we choose. Because what we can see here is that sometimes some of us see harsh comments that could be expressed in a better way in their code reviews. So once again, we should not do code reviews to police each other. That's just unfair. Let's rather concentrate on knowledge sharing and consistency. Okay, let's talk about more fun stuff now, lab days. With rainbows and unicorns that every developer feels excited about. Some people also perceive it as an activity developers can spend the whole day on, deliver nothing useful in the end, and not be punished for that. No, that's a hackathon. Lab day is a day with a theme. This is when we work on something that we normally can't find time for. So, and let me give you an example of how it could be implemented practically. This is Team Yggdrasil. Are you here now? Yggdrasil? Good. So I worked with these guys for about a couple of months as part of an exchange program. And one of the things I liked the most about them was their lab days. So every other Monday we would gather in a room to define the themes of the day, and then we would split in groups to work on those themes, and then at the end of the day we would present the results of our work to everyone. And the presence of the deadline was quite cool because everyone was pushing their limits, so to speak. So almost always we had something to show. And as far as I know, quite a lot of interesting and useful stuff came out of that. And one thing I can remember was the way they improved the process of managing risk data. So in the beginning, that process was very tedious and error prone. So every time a risk needed a new risk variable to be introduced, then analysts would file a ticket, then they would assign it to Yggdrasil, and then there were a lot of back and forth between them. So over the time, guys came up with a solution that allowed them to exclude themselves from the loop. So basically, if a new variable needed to be introduced, analysts could do it themselves. But the only problem, though, was that that solution was rolled out on the markets that had most of the traffic at the time. But over the time, remaining markets started to get more and more traffic. So but since the priorities have changed, guys didn't really have a chance to finish up their work, so they were kind of stuck with, like, in the semi-done state. And then a guy called Martin, who got apparently completely annoyed with that situation, he used lab days to finish up the work. So it took him a while, but then he had a working prototype that then people looked at and said, whoa, we have something that works. And then all of a sudden, the project got prioritized again, which is very cool. So this is an example of how lab days could be used to tackle tech debt. So quick show of hands. Who is a developer? Okay, most of us. And who hates tech debt? Technical debt? Okay, pretty much everyone, except maybe Case. Okay, but seriously, you can use lab days is your opportunity to tackle it. Okay, let's see how many of us do lab days. So according to the result of the questionnaire, it's about 28%. But what I would like to draw attention to is that there is great demand on having lab days. Well, I guess there might be different reasons why people feel interested and nothing is done on the other hand. I have a suspicion that the major reason is that we have too much important work to do, and we don't have time for fun stuff. But seriously, I believe if we keep in mind the following 3 reasons, then everyone, including engineers and product owners, etc., will be fine with scheduling lab days on a recurring basis. Reason number 1, tech debt can be tackled, as Yggdrasil showed us. That leads to improved quality of the systems we build. Second, which follows directly from the first one, is that the work processes that we use can be optimized so that the lead time of the tickets decreases. And last but not least is that the work satisfaction among developers gets better. And the thing with this is, without having it, it's just a matter of time a person quits. Okay, so the last topic I'd like to cover today is celebrations. So let's see how we celebrate wins at Klarna. So we do it this way. What makes me feel worried here is that 28% answer that they do not celebrate at all. Has anyone ever seen how baseball teams celebrate their wins? I'm going to show you anyways. They do it this way. Well, don't get me wrong here. I'm not encouraging you to get drunk next time you deploy to production. But seriously, why do you think they're so excited? I actually believe that that's because they kind of realize what they have gone through together and how much blood, sweat, and tears it took. Likewise, at Klarna Group, we aim at building products that provide the smoothest experience to our customers, which is very hard. Doing it in a fast-paced environment like we have here is even harder. So I would like to encourage you, when next time you have achieved something important and useful, grasp your opportunity to celebrate. Because with celebration of wins, team spirit gets built. And they also get us to a state where we strive for repeating that success over and over again. Do we have any engineering managers here, by the way? Okay, couple. I guess I just set you up because you will most likely start getting requests about the budget. So get ready. Okay. Great, so we have gone through a set of ideas that can help you, that you can apply to improve team's performance, and I hope that everyone has heard at least something that they found useful and applicable to their case. So I would like to make the ending of my talk epic, so I'm gonna finish it up with a quote, of course. That was said by Patrick Lencioni, who is the author of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Teamwork is not about mastering sophisticated theories, but rather about embracing common sense with uncommon levels of discipline. So I wish all of you to build up those uncommon levels of discipline so that you can achieve the state of high performance. But the last thing I would like to say is, I believe that all of us have something to share. And if you think that you do, then please do it as much as possible. Do it via tech talks, do it via exchange programs, do it via technical, like blog posts, whatever. The more of the knowledge sharing we do, the better we become as a company, the better we become as teams, the better we become as people. Thank you.